Welcome to the Streaking Show. It's so good to be back with you. And I have my lovely co-host with me today.
Thank you.
Which is great. We are so excited to be talking with you about a conversation that came up in the kitchen. A lot of our conversations come up with it in the kitchen as far as what we're looking to accomplish or achieve or do in our lives. And a particular principle came up. It was one of Jami's great brainstorms that we'd like to talk with you about today. So without further ado, let's start streaking. What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is Streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jami.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today. All right, so give us the lowdown. What was happening? And what was built up to? We're not going to give you the punchline right away, so you got to listen to the story for just a second.
Okay, now I've got to tell the story without giving the punchline. We have children that are at that age that they're starting to make a lot of life decisions, and their friends are at that age that they're also making some of those big decisions in their life. And I'd been noticing how much time and energy was going into preparing for this. And there'd been a couple times that in our conversations, they had talked about what they were doing to prepare and all the things that they were doing to be ready and to feel like they were ready to go.
Mm-hmm. And when they when they would feel like they were ready to go.
That they were like, okay. So what was happening and what I was observing is that they were preparing. And then they'd get pretty close and they would say, well, I'm just going to put it off a little bit longer because I don't feel prepared yet. There's a few more things that I need to do. I'm going to put it off just a little bit. And I recognized something that was happening that I thought was really important. And it's something, the reason I recognized it is because it's something that personally I've looked at a lot myself.
Yeah.
And it was, can I do the punchline now?
Yeah, you can do the punchline now.
What I recognized is that preparation is so important. And we have, in the world that we live in, we have a lot of resources to prepare for things.
Yeah.
We have lots of things online. We have lots of friends. We have lots of places that we can go to see people that have done what we've done and to get prepared and to so that we can be ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was noticing was the feeling, the personal feeling that you have to be able to move forward. And what I recognized is I thought there are things in life that no matter how much you personally prepare for, you will never feel prepared enough, no matter what. And so that what I was talking to Lily about is I said exactly that. There's things that you will do that no matter how much you prepare, you're always going to feel like, well, maybe I could do just a little bit more. And maybe the truth is maybe you could prepare a little bit more. But what I recognized is that feeling of not being prepared may not go away. You may have to take a leap of faith, that to start on that journey takes that first step, and that first step is a leap of faith. No matter how much you've prepared, like you're not going to be able to prepare enough to personally feel prepared. You're always going to have to take a leap of faith.
This was a huge, profound moment for me as Jami said this. And I remember exactly the scene because we have a great big island in our kitchen and you were standing right on the corner and you just said this. It came out like, there are things that you will, and I think most everything, you'll never feel prepared enough to have it. I mean, I think back to when we got married and I think of myself did I feel prepared to be married?
Right.
And I didn't.
No.
I mean,
and we could have done more to prepare, but
right.
We always could have done, but there's
right.
always more people
so
you can talk to
that's
or more
a huge
books
life
you can
event.
read.
I mean, if
yes.
we go back even a little bit further, did I feel prepared to go to college?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I mean, I just didn't. Did I feel prepared to serve a mission? No. Now,
did I feel prepared to become a mom.
To become a mom.
No.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you feel prepared to become a mom?
No. And there is
and to raise children.
Yes.
And to be a mom. Did you feel prepared for every one of our children, for 7 children?
Every single one of them, there's that new feeling of you're like, I'm not ready.
I'm not ready.
I don't know.
I
I'm not
just
ready.
do not
There's
feel
more
prepared.
I need to do to be ready.
Right. I look at so if we look at other life events, as far as, so we've covered marriage, a new job. Do I feel prepared to do that? I may have confidence,
right?
But I'm not necessarily going to be prepared for that new job. There's going to be things that I have to do differently. I mean,
and that was really the distinction that I was trying to make, is not that, like, preparation is important, and intentional preparation is very important, especially for things that people are relying on us for. Or
okay, I just thought of one. Yeah, relying on us, the bar. So
Yes.
Our oldest daughter and her husband just took the bar, and they, I would say, were the most prepared that I have seen of anyone that I've personally interacted with to take the bar. But they did not feel prepared.
No,
Or prepared enough.
There was still that feeling of, I just have to step forward. I have to take what I've done, hope and pray it's enough, and move forward.
Right.
And that's what I was wanting to communicate, that I feel like I've learned through the years of different challenges, because I've spent a lot of time trying to be prepared enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. It wasn't that they aren't prepared, or that you can't even do more. That's the paradox, is that you are prepared, but you could do more.
You could always do more.
And so what it really was a recognition of that feeling, of that if you're waiting for that feeling that you're like, okay, now I'm prepared enough. There are very, very few things in life.
So do you think then that
you get that?
Yeah, that feeling, as far as, okay, I'm going to wait until I get prepared enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to ask a tough question, but you don't have to answer it.
Okay.
Has that prevented you from doing some of the things that maybe you've wanted to do in your life? Now, you don't necessarily have to answer it.
Yes.
I know. It's one of those where...
And also...
So how have you gotten past it then? And that's the question I ask myself is, how have I gotten past this? I don't feel prepared enough, but I'm going to go ahead and step forward anyway.
I think the beautiful thing, the first part of it, is recognizing that most people feel this way. So you're not alone. And then the second thing is, once you know and understand and can understand what to expect about how you're going to feel, because that's what I was thinking, is I thought, this person, Lily's friend was who we were talking about. He is preparing and preparing and preparing, believing that if he does enough, he'll reach a point that he feels prepared. And that's what I was looking at, as I was saying, he may never reach that point.
Yeah.
And so if you wait and wait and wait, then a lot of things can happen that aren't good. You maybe, like you said, miss opportunities to do things because you think that you could do more to be prepared.
Yeah.
Without recognizing that there are some things that you will always feel that way on, and that you could always do more on. So at some point, you just have to say, I've done enough. I've prepared enough. I will learn more as I go, and I will continue to prepare. But I need to take this leap of faith. I need to take this first step.
Okay.
While I feel not prepared.
Right. So this reminds me, one of my favorite Indiana Jones is The Last Crusade.
Yep.
And he has the 3 trials that he has to pass in order to get to the cup of Christ. Right. It's the chalice. It's what they're looking for. And the third test, the final test, is this great big chasm that he has to cross. And he has a clue, which is that, you take a leap of faith in order to make it happen. And he's looking across this great big chasm and thinking to himself,
I can't leap far enough
I can't get any more prepared. There's nothing I can do. And at the moment, he kind of takes it and he's like, okay, well, I'll just take the leap of faith. So I remember the way that they shot it was so perfect. He put his foot straight in the air, his first foot straight in the air, and then he just leaned forward, and that foot hit a bridge that was camouflaged with the side of the canyon wall.
So there was actually a way for him to get there, but you couldn't see it.
But he had to take the step of faith to make it happen.
Yes.
And he had done everything he could to be prepared for that moment, yet still had to take the leap of faith. And I think that is, as we look in our lives at any of the major events that we have up and coming, it's to prepare and then in the moment to take the leap of faith.
You're right. Forward. That's like a 2-step process. You prepare, you do your research, you do what you can to find out, but you're going to have to take a leap of faith still. Even with all of your preparation, even with everything you've done, you're still going to have to exhibit a little bit of that faith and trust and take the first step when you're uncomfortable.
Right.
And that to me, I keep saying the same thing over and over, but I think that's the part that was revealing to me, was because I really felt that if I did enough, I would feel prepared. Mm-hmm. And that's what was the revelation to me, is that I needed to accept that I may never feel prepared, that I may never feel that I've done enough. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. To just accept that and think, well, I'm going to do what I know I need to do. Right. I'm not going to set aside my responsibilities and totally ignore it. I am going to prepare. But I am also going to have to I may have to start my journey in the middle of my preparations, not when I've got them all tied up in a nice, cute package with the pretty bow on top and the tag, and it's all ready to go, and I can present it to myself and be like, yes, let's go. That's not how life seems to work.
And yours would look that way.
I want it to look that way. That's the whole point.
So the question then that I want to discuss just a little bit is, so how do you make that step? How do you decide when you don't feel prepared enough, but what is it that helps you make that step? And how is it that streaking in different areas of our life have helped us make that step? And so as you think about that, I was thinking about this in regards to, so I've started several businesses, and I never feel prepared to start a business. There's always so much more to do. It's a lot of times the analogy is you're building the engine while flying the plane.
Yes, I've heard it. You're building the bike as you're riding, or the more terrifying one, I think, is we're building the airplane as we fly.
As we fly.
And the first time I heard that, I remember thinking, well, that's stupid. You're not going to be flying very much. But then as I've gone through life, I've been able to see how important that is. Mm-hmm. There is times that's...
Because I look at it, so that's business, but let's go to having children. When we talk about having children, I need to have all the finances in place. I need to have all of the necessary living arrangements in place. Mm-hmm. I need to have, and there's any number of things that you can continue to prepare for. But there comes a point where you just have to make the decision to move forward. And what we found, and I want to get to the crux of how do we make the decision, what we found is that it generally works out. There's usually a bridge there. There's usually something that will get us across the chasm. Again, the question I want to address is, how do you finally make that step? Is it you just do it? I mean, but that seems so cliche.
I know.
You just do it.
I know. So my own personal experience with pregnancy, I don't know that I make that step. I guess you make the step to decide to have children. But when you're going to deliver, you do reach a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I have got to move forward. So there are some times... When
you say can't do this anymore, you mean like you're 9 months pregnant?
Yes, when you're 9 months pregnant.
And you're like...
And you just can't sleep and you can't breathe and you can't... All of those things that are uncomfortable. You do reach this place where you're like, okay, I don't care how prepared I need to be. I am ready to have this baby.
I've done everything I can possibly do. I don't feel prepared, but this child has to be out of me.
So I do think there is
no more room in the womb.
No more room. I do think there are certain times that's one of the ways that you can know it's time to move forward, where things have gotten so uncomfortable, or to a place where you think it is time to go.
Yeah.
Like we need to move.
Yeah.
So that's one area, but that's something I think. Pregnancies, you don't have an option with that if the baby's going to be born. But in life, we do, I think, sometimes need to be careful that we don't wait too long. Mm-hmm. Because... Or
the window of opportunity closes.
Yes, that window of opportunity can close. And
it's something that we've talked a little bit about as far as what uncomfortableness am I willing to live with? Mm-hmm. Am I willing to live with the uncomfortableness of exercising every day? Or am I willing to live with the uncomfortableness of being out of shape and not be later on in life? Because it's going to be uncomfortable on one end or the other. Now, not exercising might be more comfortable because my body isn't acting
the
like the
short term.
2-year-old and raising up against me and saying, I hurt everywhere. However, in the long term, do I want to do that uncomfortable?
Right.
And I think that relates to this, to what you're saying, as I get to the place where the decision needs to be made, what comfort level am I or uncomfortable level am I willing to live with? Is it the uncomfortableness of not going to college? Or is it the uncomfortableness of moving forward with college?
Right.
Is it the uncomfortableness of not going on a mission, for example? Or is it the uncomfortableness of just taking the step and going forward with it?
So you bring up a really good point, because as you're talking, what I'm thinking, the key factor in all of those questions is that you're being intentional about asking the question, and you're forcing yourself to look at really what it is that you're wanting out of life. And when you do that, when you're honest with yourself, and when you're willing to look at it with intention and willing to look at it and say, okay, what is it that I'm really wanting to do here? Then you can look at why you're making the decision you're making. Why am I waiting? Am I waiting because I really do have a few more things that I need to do to be prepared? Or am I waiting because I'm hoping that I'll feel better about this, that I won't be nervous? And then by being able to answer that question, and the thing is that maybe other people can't answer that question for you. Maybe you have to answer it for yourself. Maybe the answer is, no, there really is a few more things that I need to get prepared. Like, that's for real. But asking the question and being honest with yourself, I think, is the first step. Being intentional.
And that brings up something I think that is part of that intentionality, which is one of the mantras that I live by. Any decision made in fear is usually the wrong decision. So if I am fearful about future circumstances and that's why I'm waiting, that is most likely a wrong decision.
Right.
Any decision made in fear is usually the wrong decision. Now, if it's I'm prepared and now I'm going to take the step of faith and move forward with faith, that's different. Because like you said, I may look at it and say, you know what, I am almost there. I'm not fearful of what will be. However, there's really a few things that I need to prepare in order to be ready for this next life event, whatever it may be.
Right. So I think that, as you say, how do you overcome that? I think the first step, in my mind, is recognizing that your feelings of being prepared may never fully come to fruition. You may have to deal with life not feeling fully prepared. The second thing is being intentional about asking yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is there something more I need to do? Or am I just hoping that I feel better, but really I need to take that leap of faith?
I'll compare it to the recent marathon that I was training for. So I'd started my marathon training 18 weeks beforehand. And it's usually about 4 weeks before the marathon, 3 or 4 weeks before the marathon, you run a 20-miler.
Right.
So I ran the 20-miler, went well. The next week, I ran a 5-miler on the treadmill, and I went a little faster than I should have. And my legs weren't quite recovered from the 20-miler, and I strained my hamstring.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned this in a podcast a couple of days ago, but in relation to what we're talking about, the question that I started to ask myself, am I prepared to run the marathon? I didn't ever feel prepared to run the marathon. However, on this occasion, I was deciding between two good things in my mind. One was running the marathon, and the other was keeping my streak alive of running or walking at least 1 mile every day, 6 days a week. And I decided after 2 weeks of walking and my hamstring was still, and then I ran a little bit and my hamstring was still strained, that I decided not to do the marathon. I decided not to move forward with that. But it wasn't made in fear. I wasn't fearful about it. I actually looked at it and said, you know what? I'm going to have another opportunity to run this marathon. I want to keep running. And that's what I want to do. So as you look at that particular scenario, I think that can be applied in several different ways. In regards to being able to look at a scenario in your life, something that you've prepared for, and then something changes.
Yes.
and now I need to make maybe a different decision than what I'd been expecting, or I need to move forward with the decision that I had.
Right. Yours is an interesting example because you bring up a good point that sometimes you've prepared, and you may not feel prepared, but you do want to make that step. And there's something inside of you that's saying, you need to be careful. You need to step back a little bit here. And life is so fun.
I know. What were you thinking right there?
I just think
you just
of
had
how
three
many
thoughts go through your head.
I just love, life is so paradoxical. And sometimes when we talk about these things, you look at it and you're just like, well, but how do you know when to go forward and how do you know when it's time to step back? And I think that you had brought up, and I don't have an answer to that question. I guess that's where I look at it and I think each person has to be intentional in asking themselves those questions and finding out for themselves. You asked a really good question earlier, though, that how can streaking help with that?
Right.
And the thing that I feel like streaking has done the most for me in helping with that is getting me started, not thinking I have to be so prepared to do it. And it happens multiple times in a streak. It happens when I start a streak because I often think, well, I've got to get a lot of things together so that I'm ready to do this streak. And sometimes that's true. Maybe there are some things that I need to put together. And sometimes it's like, no, you just need to get started. But often, and this happens pretty much with every streak I have, I usually start strong. And sometimes
and when you say start, what you mean is by actually deciding to do a streak.
I decide to do a streak and I start strong emotionally and mentally. In other words, when I'm doing that streak, I feel good about myself because I did it at the level that I wanted to do it at. But then often something comes along and I have a day or two or several days in a row that I'm not able to do it at the level that makes me feel good inside, which is that level that feels a little brag-worthy, which is not what streaking is.
It's not brag-worthy.
And that's what I think has helped me so much is doing my streaks through all of those emotions, that you keep going. So in other words, you keep taking that step. And what is the leap of faith that you're taking there? That the small things done consistently is going to make a difference. That every small thing that you're doing will add up over time. And I think the biggest thing that it makes the difference in is that it changes my mindset. Mm-hmm. That needing to take, that being afraid to move forward because I need to be so prepared. Right. Is a little bit, it can turn into like a fixed mindset. In other words, I don't know if I'll ever be prepared enough.
Right.
Moving forward is training me to always be working towards that growth mindset, which is really that it's going to take effort and continual effort, but that effort is going to look different. Sometimes that effort is going to be, wow, I really worked hard. Like I worked hard. I feel good about that effort. And sometimes that effort is going to be, I did it today, even though it kind of was lame and it didn't look so great. And I don't want anybody to know what my effort was, but that still is effort. Right. Because you put the effort in to do it rather than walking away and not doing it.
So that reminds me of a post that I reposted on LinkedIn, and it was from Ravi Nair, and it was TED, Ideas Worth Spreading, so but unofficial. So I'm not sure what this is, but this is the post.
So I'm not sure what this is, but it was good.
It was good. Your first workout will be bad. Your first podcast will be bad. I remember our first podcast. Oh my goodness. I go back and listen to some of those and I'm like, do we still have to have these out there?
Can we get rid of these ones?
Your first speech will be bad. Your first video will be bad. Your first anything will be bad. But you can't make your 100th without making your first. So put your ego aside and start. That's streaking.
That is streaking.
Right there. It's setting aside what it is you feel that you're either not prepared or prepared for, whatever, and moving forward with it. Yep. And doing it in no matter what the circumstances. And so what you say as far as streaking is concerned, that's it exactly. There's one other post that I had in here, which was all about mood. And it was something about the idea that I'm not in the mood. Oh, our mood is horrible motivation. It changes and is unreliable. Instead of letting how you feel determine how we act, let's let our actions determine how we feel. Movement is medicine.
That is so
Isn't that good? That's off the
Yes.
Streakin. I think that's Laurel. She's our
She is
content
so
creator. And she
great.
is so good at this.
And so when you say, how can streaking help? Because you're right. The way that you feel can be overpowering and totally not motivating. And streaking is getting that first. It's just do it. Just get started. I'm just going to do it. It's that feeling. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter how I feel. I'm just going to do it. And then as you do it, you have the higher potential of feeling much better about things.
As I look at the different areas of life that I've been streaking, spiritual, physical, professional, personal, all those different areas, I think about in the physical realm, because that's the easiest to tell your mood. I never am in the mood to go running.
I'm not going to say never. I've had a few times.
It is so small.
But my funny thing is, I always have the mood to go on a run. When I'm in the car and I pass someone else who's running, I'm like, oh, I should
That's
go on a
inspirational.
run. Yes.
Which is one of the reasons why we say one of the laws of streaking is to create a community, is because it becomes inspirational.
Right.
But
I cannot rely on feeling in the mood.
No,
I would do it like
absolutely not.
once or twice a year if I was lucky.
Exactly.
Like the day after New Year's and the first day of, I don't know what.
Of summer. When you want to get
you're
in
like,
there.
oh, I'll
you
get
want to
out
get in
and
your,
go on a run.
Your bathing
But
suit
you know what's-
body. You want to get your bathing suit body ready to go.
When you don't, so there's another thing. When you don't do something consistently and then you are in the mood and you go and do it, it's usually not very gratifying because you haven't been doing it and you kind of stink at it.
Oh, so I have just started a new masterclass on intentional eating with Michael Polland, I think his last name is. Anyway, the first thing that he talks, well, after talking about all the stats of eating and what eating is about, he then says, here's your first exercise. Okay, now the first exercise is this. Log your food that you intake. Just log your food. Now, when he said that, I have a streak of recording every single calorie I eat on a daily basis. And I did this a long time ago because one of the things he said, and I actually posted this in the Streaking app, is he says, don't be emotional about it. It's what you eat. And just don't feel guilty or bad or any of those things.
So
just
the
write
first
down
step
what
to
you
eating
eat.
healthy, the first step to getting financially responsible is, well, let's look at what you're doing.
Let's log it.
And let's take the emotion out of it.
Right.
Because the emotion is going to stop you from doing the first step.
Which I think goes back to the whole idea of the life events that you're looking at. Is there is something about removing the emotion from it and really just moving forward with that first step. Okay, I'm going to log all my food. And I knew that was something I needed to do in order to feel healthy. And my eating has changed just from logging food. I haven't been like making massive different changes, but I have changed little tiny ways all the time as far as how I eat because I've been logging my food every single day. And that's been years now. That's your phone, huh? I don't know where there's my phone. Looking on that. I'm curious now how long I've been keeping this streak alive.
It has been years. One thing I wanted to say that is in doing that I've noticed has been good for you is that it doesn't have, counting your calories can get a little bit of a hang up because you feel like, well, how many calories were in that thing?
Right.
And it doesn't have to be the perfect exact amount of calories.
Right.
You're just keeping a log of what you're eating.
Right. I'm keeping a log of all calories I've consumed every day. And the streak lives as I record everything I've done. And I've done that now for 2,796 days in a row.
That's amazing.
That's, what is that, 6 years?
Yeah.
Almost 6 years?
And you just log it every single day.
Every single day. And what happened though is when I started listening to this class is I was like, oh, I've been doing that. I didn't feel any type of guilt. And so it was to your point, I didn't feel like I had to start something. I didn't feel like I had to get all this momentum behind something.
So that's a really good point. As you continue streaking, you're going to start to have experiences where people say, oh, this is the first step. And you'll think, oh, I've already been doing that.
And really that's what streaking is about, is picking the laughably simple first step that you move forward with. So when we talk about moving forward with a life event, there's a lot of streaks that you may already have wanted to start or that you are doing that will help you in that next life event.
Right. And
So, for example,
Go ahead.
sorry,
Nope, you
I
go.
think of you're about to go through, you have a life event coming up that's going to be a major change.
Yep.
And you have a couple of streaks that you're going to just keep doing. It's not like you have to start something over.
No. And we've been streaking long enough now that I'm really starting to see the benefits of the changes that I can see in myself. Are now more visible. Does that make sense? Sometimes, and the reason I say it that way is because I read I've been wanting to start weightlifting, and I've been intimidated by it, but I've also been feeling strongly that I'm like, I need to get stronger. I need to be doing something. So I've been watching little YouTube shorts and trying to understand how to do weightlifting and how to start and good things for my age. And it was great because I was watching this one girl, and one of the concerns that was brought forward for women was, well, if I lift, I'll get too bulky, and I don't want to get bulky. And she said, it was really cute. She said, building muscle is a very slow process. You're not going to wake up one day and have accidentally built too much. And I loved that and I thought, how true is that for so many things? Building character is a slow process. You're not going to wake up one morning and have accidentally built character. Like it's built, these things that we want in our life are built over small, consistent actions that we've done repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. And then you do wake up one day and look back at years of small repeated action, and you think, oh, I actually changed in that way. Like I'm different than I used to be. And that's what streaking can do, is it helps you work through, it helps you day to day be intentional about the decisions that you're wanting to make, so that years down the road, and we're all going to be 5 years down the road, no matter how, I guess that's what, we're all going to get older. So we're all going to reach this place where we're 5 years down the road. And it'd be great to look back and think, wow, all those things that I've been doing for the last 5 years, or even those few things that I've been doing consistently for the last 5 years, like I'm a different person because of that. I've changed inside, and I can see those changes now. Whereas each day, you may not be able to see the difference that it's making.
As you talk, I'm thinking about just the different changes that we've had come in our life over the last 5-6 years. And as I look at some of the life events that have happened, we've been streaking through all of them. And I realized just now that many of them, the fear was not the reason why we didn't move forward. We actually moved forward intentionally and deliberately. And we had made intentional, deliberate, mindful decisions. And as I look back now, it's because many of the streaks that we have were the floor, the foundation on which we made those decisions. And so it wasn't as fearful anymore. I wasn't as hesitant. That's the word I was looking for. I wasn't as hesitant to move forward. I was like, well, we've been going forward with this. I mean, just in the last 3 months, we've had some pretty major changes. And with those, I haven't been as hesitant to move forward because I've already had the behavior, the activity in place that will support those.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have to learn and prepare and do other things, but I have the base on which I can build in order to move forward with those.
Yep. And I think streaking gives you that foundational thing that you need in your life when things are changing.
Yeah.
This has been really fun.
Yeah, it's been a good conversation, hasn't it?
Yes, and it's been fun to look at. It's been fun to look at life stages of life.
Yeah.
And the different feelings that you have, and how in every stage, streaking can help accomplish the things that you're wanting to accomplish, and can help you feel more confident as you move forward.
So that takes me back to the conversation we had with Talon, and I told you about it last week. I was talking, and Talon and I happened on the 3 categories of streaks: lifetime streaks that I'm going to keep for all of my life until I die. That no matter what I'm doing,
I want this to be a part of my life.
Be a part of my life. Time of life streaks, which as you go through certain times in your life, you'll have those streaks and you'll retire those.
Yes.
And then challenge streaks, which they're challenging enough, but I'm going to push myself. and those ultimately will be retired as well. And as I think of I just think of those three areas, and I'm like, as you have your events that are happening in life, you'll never feel prepared enough, but you can have a foundation on which you build to move forward.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
We have enjoyed talking with you today. Hopefully you've enjoyed the conversation as well. If you would like to chat with us or share with us some of your insights, thoughts, inspirations, please email us, Jeffrey, Jeffery, at thestreakingapp.com, or
Jami, Jami, at thestreakingapp.com.
Also, download the Streakin app. We post there periodically a lot, and you can follow our streaks. You can see all the different streaks that we have. They're public, and so you can see what they are and how many days we've kept them, and you can ask us questions there as well. You can download the Streakin app at the Google Play or the Apple App Store. Also, right behind me on the shelf back here is the Streakin book, written out of our experience, what it takes to set up a successful streak in your life. You can order that from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or anywhere books are sold. And here's one last ask or invitation we have for you. Please subscribe to the podcast. We'd invite you to subscribe to the podcast, rate the app, and review the book. I know those are three things. If you only choose one, that's fine with us. We'd really appreciate it. Until we talk next time.
It's the little things that make a better